Welcome, welcome. I am so looking forward to our conversation today. Rich, before we get started, just share a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Sure, yeah. My name is Richard Greco, and I'm a CPA located in Florida. Most people would say Tampa. It's actually Tarpon Springs. And we have a small little practice here and about 3 to 4 employees. We take care of the local community, business, and individuals, taxes, accounting, and other client services and consulting type of services.
And I know that the move away from traditional price strategies over towards value pricing, offering subscriptions is a journey. And I wanted to just get an idea as to what things were like before we actually started working together.
I would say, number one, I was falling into that good old conventional system of keeping track of time. Everything we did, we started to book time. If we didn't book the time, it seemed to me that it was difficult to determine I was going to bill the client. So that was the biggest thing. And once we started talking about value pricing, which I've always believed in, I just didn't really know how to incorporate it into my practice. I just stopped managing time. So we don't have any timesheets. Nobody puts any time. It's not a matter of, well, you keep track of it, but you're charging a certain fee. We don't even do that. We just strictly determine our fees based on the value that our client's going to receive.
That's really interesting. I actually would like to dig into that a little bit more because I believe that you've taken a leap that a lot of firm owners that move to value pricing don't actually do. They hold on to their timesheets, and even if they don't do it for them, they do it for their staff. So tell me how that's been for you and your staff with letting go of the timesheets.
Well, I would say I have one person that loves it because the time was always entered after the fact at the end of the day, and they may have worked on 10 jobs. And so 5 minutes here, 15 minutes there. It's like, it was really a waste. It was just a guess. A couple of them have been, feeling like, well, how are you going to know what to charge a client? Because unfortunately, I trained them to manage their time. So I created my own issue. However, I do want to say that one of the main reasons that I decided to hire you as a coach, Lauren, was I wanted to have change. And I knew that the change had to had to give me the opportunity to manage my business, make more for the value that we bring to the table. And I saw it as an opportunity to say, I can minimize administrative tasks.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of managing the time and not just entering the time, but then running timesheets, looking at the time, determining what you're going to bill the client. I don't even know how many hours that was taking me because then I got to put that on my timesheet, right? Administrative work. So for me, it was great. For the staff, they are fully adjusted to it now. And we're talking about 4 months, 5 months.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually, they've accepted it because I'm leading it. And they also know that I hired a professional coach in my field to help grow our business, and they are accepting it.
Okay, you're no longer managing time, which I think that tracking it is actually a headache for so many people. Like you said, it's something that takes time away from actually serving one of your clients at a higher level. So you also said that you were looking for change. Was there something specific that made you decide that you wanted to move in this direction, and that that piqued your interest with wanting to work together?
So throughout my career, I have been a public accountant, having my own practice, working as a CFO, and now over the last few years back into a practice. And tax season is horrible. And I decided I cannot continue doing this. I cannot go through another tax season where I'm working 7 days a week, pretty much working a lot of hours each day and just knocking myself out. And I realized I can't do it anymore. So this was an approach that I felt would give me the relief. So for me, it was really important to go down a different path. And I didn't know what that path was. I knew it was going to be more value service and more subscription service and cash service as opposed to conventional compliance service. That I understood, but I didn't really understand where we would end up. I just wanted to go on a journey And you've led me through a journey, and I think you know me well enough that if somebody shows me something to do it, I'm just going to do it. I am not
Mhm.
because what I'm doing isn't working. So I'm going to try anything to switch if it feel like it's a good thing.
And one of the changes that you mentioned that I just wanted to also talk a little bit more about was the transition from because you're no longer invoicing and billing, you moved over to a subscription service. Can you explain how that works now in your firm and some of the changes you've noticed because of that?
So I would say the biggest thing is communication with the client right from the beginning has to be much more, much clearer. And so now we have a very clear scope of service. This is what they're going to receive in the entire year. So we lay it all out as for the year, and we pitch it as, let's take the annual work that we're going to do. Let's look at what the value of that is, and let's just divide it by 12, and that's what you'll pay. So everything's included. So they don't have to worry about it. Some clients may want to pay the whole year up front. At this stage in my practice, I'm not finding that as a major thing. What I'm finding is that more are paying on a monthly basis. They have peace of mind. They're not going to get any other bills, any surprises during the course of the year. So they know what their budget is. They can plan that way. We know what the scope of services are. If they step out, we have a conversation. And in addition, now we do automatic billing at the beginning of each month and auto pay, not just the billing, but auto pay, that it gets either drawn directly from their bank account or it gets charged onto a credit card. And so that I don't really have to invoice anymore, as you say. We still have to keep track on our books and records of what it is, but we don't have to send them an invoice to get paid. It's all automatic.
Mm-hmm. And hearing that makes me very happy that there's no more invoices. You now move to a prepaid model where they're paying you and it's automated before you do the work. I think the transparency where they know exactly what's included, there's no surprises, is something that brings a lot of relief because now everybody's on the same page and they see you more as a team player. With all of that, one of the biggest challenges I see for so many firms is raising fees. And it's not just raising fees with new clients coming in, but it's those clients that you've been working with for a while that are used to things being a certain way, and now you're changing things up. So have you been thinking about raising your clients' rates for a while before you actually started to do that?
Interesting. We actually did raise our rates a bit before we met. So we already had a little bit. I took over a practice that was a very small practice and we're very undercharged. So I kept the first year or two pretty much where it was. And it was easier to bring on new clients and try to get better rates than change the rates on the existing clients. So we didn't really have much attrition. Fortunately, everybody wanted to stay. Think about it. Of course, they want to stay. They're getting a very good rate and good quality services. Why wouldn't you want to stay? So we're currently working on our existing clients and trying to edge them up. We meet pretty much weekly on that. And what I'm finding is that the clients are asking for better quality service. And if they need the quality service, then we're the right fit for them and they'll pay the fee. If not, we may just not be the right accounting firm for them and they may be somebody else. And I've come to I've come to the terms where it's okay if they want to move on. And if it's not a good fit, I'll help them move on.
And as you've been navigating that, I know that things come up for you. And even with the whole journey we've been on together, sometimes it's just the way you have to get out of your own way. So were there any obstacles that you had to work through in order for us to work together?
Sure. I would say I always had this vision of being the local CPA, taking care of the local community and saying no to nobody and having, a high 90%, what I call kill rate, meaning 90% of my client potential business, and I sell or they hire us. So the transition to recognizing I'm not going to be able to do that for all of the community is difficult for me. It's still a little bit difficult. It is a challenge. However, I'm starting to realize that we just, like, as I said before, we just may not be the right fit for them. and I'll do my best to get them fit with the right accountant or whatever services they need. So that's been an obstacle for me because it's not so much about wanting to have a kill ratio of 90%. I know we aim more for the 70% now, that you know that you're, you know that pretty much is an indication that you're pricing your market properly. If I have too high of a rate, as we've discussed, it's probably my fees are probably not where they should be. So we try to get that in the right spot. It is just a little bit difficult for me to say no or not help people because that's more of my focus. As much as I want to make a living in this business, I also want to make sure I can go to bed at night and I can take care of people that have needs that they probably not going to have too many people they can go to.
And I think that is a challenge when you're very client-centered, which I know that you are, Rich, is that there's this desire to want to help everyone because you know that you can, but also it's about being more strategic in who you know you can help best. And that some people might not be a great fit for where you're going. So when you started to go from that 90% close rate where almost everybody said yes to you engaging your services, and it started to go closer to maybe 70%. How is that for you when you started to hear some no's?
Well, let me say this. What's happening is I'm actually not hearing the no's. They just don't sign up, right? So it's very interesting that all of a sudden they go silent. That is the no, right? So they go silent. It's becoming pretty easy. It's like, okay, that's fine. Get that one last phone call, that one last touch. If it's a referral from somebody, let them know what's going on. And I put them into a section that we call the graveyard. And we just put it aside and they decide we file it away if we electronically or paper, whatever we've done. And if they decide to come back, we'll open it up. The other interesting thing is I'm saying no more, which really is very interesting. I have one currently on the table. This person is came in. We did a little work for them. I wasn't sure. I didn't bill him because I really wasn't sure, and been following up with me. And we're not going to take him on as a client. So I feel good that I could just say no. And I will say for the staff really respects when I take a stand and say no to some clients that really are very difficult to deal with. And that's what we're finding, that if it's difficult to deal with, it's more difficult for my staff than it is for me because they're not going to talk to me the way they talk to the staff. What you don't realize is I'm sitting right next to one of the staff people. So I'm going to know what's going on. I mean, I find it interesting. People think you must have these huge offices that they can talk to somebody, but nobody else is going to find out. So, but I'm saying no more. Clients are saying no more. And we end up with the clients. What I'm also finding is that I can take care of some of the community people that maybe I wouldn't take care of. However, because I'm getting rid of other than saying the dead weight, actually a little time to do that. So I don't have to totally lose that. I may not be getting those fees for some of them, but I could do that because that could be my gratis or my give back to the community. So that's how it's working.
And I believe in giving back as well. So this creates the capacity for you to do that. The other thing that you made a point about, which was really important, is because you're not accepting everybody, especially those difficult clients, it actually takes care of your staff. And have you had maybe any difficult clients that you fired because of the fact that they were stressful for someone on your team?
Absolutely. And even before meeting with you, if I would not take any disrespect. And I've had very hard conversations with some clients that said, no, I'm sorry, my staff member didn't mean to say that, and they straighten it out. It's like, you are not going to disrespect anybody on my staff, and I will stand behind them. It's my team. I need to stand behind them, and they need to stand behind them. And we do that very well.
I love the fact that you actually have no bullying policy where you have no tolerance whatsoever for disrespect. It is really showing that you care about your team. And I feel that sometimes replacing a team member is much more difficult than replacing a bad client.
Oh, absolutely. And my, we're a small firm, so
Mhm.
our benefits and comp plan is probably not as good as if you went to a larger firm. However, time off, PTO policies, flexibility, work schedule is as great as I can give them. So they choose to be here because they have a life. They have a
Yeah.
really good balance in their personal life. In fact, I was sharing with them recently how their life is better than mine sometimes because they have a better work-life balance because I've been caring about them, and now I'm trying to work on my life
Mhm.
balance.
And let's kind of move into that. So, do you have any strategies that you can share about how you've been able to start increasing your revenues and getting back some of your time?
Absolutely. It's a tool which we know in this field that I wasn't really using to the extent that I need to is putting together a solid engagement letter. And now that we've had an automated process for engagement letters where we can literally put one together that is as solid in about 5 or 10 minutes because we are using some good solid technology. The engagement letters obviously is just the information that's on there, but it's a starting point and it's absolutely clear. Once it's signed, we all look at it, we understand it, not only the clients, myself, and our staff. So that was a strategy to say we need to make sure right from the beginning there's absolutely no miscommunications. In addition, we started to establish some policies as it's now in the towards the end of November. And I've been working on tax season for this next tax season since April 16th or 17th of last tax season.
Mhm.
We put together some new rules, certain things like certain clients are going to go on extension right from the beginning of the year because we know that we're not going to be able to get to them. They never get us the stuff on time. Or it could be a potentially new client and they just are not going to take priority over existing clients that have been with us all year. So we are very clear that we will take on new business, but we're going to say put them on the back burner, say we'll take care of you, but you got to get in the right line because it's not fair to our existing
Mhm.
clients. And there are other things that we've done where we've actually blocked out some time, very specific hours now, similar to, let's say, a doctor in the medical field, where we have business hours just for appointments. We're now cutting our time of meetings in half. I was basically scheduling hour meetings. Now, no meeting is getting scheduled more than a half hour as a starting point. Certain things like that. We have a lot of those pieces, a lot more details that as a team, I've defined them and we sit down and we talk and we work it together. And I think it's going to really help us because it's all about strategy and then the implementation of that should be pretty.
Mhm. And from what I've seen, you went from people calling you or the people that had the biggest crisis immediately got pushed to the top as far as tax season goes. And the clients that are like really high value clients, so sometimes they were put on a back burner. And part of what I've seen you do is really flip that around to where you're taking care of your best clients first. And you're almost like triaging, or as you mentioned, prioritizing. So some of the strategies that you mentioned was you have a really solid engagement letter now, and it is something that you can do in a couple minutes as opposed to it takes a week or so before you get it out. So it's really been able to speed up the onboarding process. Also, there's better communication as far as expectations. You've once again now prioritized clients as to who you serve first for tax season. Also, blocking out times for appointments helps you manage your calendar. And the fact that you don't need to meet with someone mandatory 60 minutes, actually, you could probably be more effective with 30 because you're not overwhelming them with information.
Absolutely. In addition, what we've also added to that is the staff. I made it clear to the staff that I need you to have appointments with clients now, which they haven't done before without me. And there are some clients that you can. And and even the role playing of when a client calls in. I mean, one of the biggest questions we get, and I'm not sure if it's around throughout the country as for CPAs, one of our biggest questions is, are you taking on new clients? And we always say, yes, we're taking on new clients. It's a matter of when we can service you, but we are taking on new clients, which is true. And There's certain things like you can't say to someone, oh, yes, we're taking on new clients, but you're going on extension right away. No, we have to look at it. It may be something that we can squeeze in. It may be something that's absolutely not able to get done. So these are things that we've learned. We're in our fourth tax season now with the
Mhm.
and we've really learned, and I expect this next year to be the best.
And as we're kind of looking at pricing and the changes you've been making, has there been any change in how you approach projects as far as looking at them, reviewing them, and then understanding the value because you're no longer tracking time?
Absolutely. One of the things, so it's an interesting, how do I go through that process is a question. Say to myself, well, how do I get a sense of what value is? Well, we actually have it built in some regards because we kind of know what someone would pay, what the market bears for an employee. So you know that there's a number out there that you can somewhat start with. If I had to hire somebody to do this work, what would their investment be in that hiring? And so what I do often is I'll take a look at what are they getting? What would I need to do internally to get that same process managed or whatever? And of course, you can't compare our services to someone internal because we're going to hit it hard because we know it. We don't need a learning curve.
Mm-hmm.
So then there's got to be a variable on top of that to say, well, you're not getting what you would hire there. You're getting maybe twice as much what you're getting there. And then what about the inefficiencies of employees? The time that they take off, what you know, uh, administrative work they may have. So we look at it in an aspect of what we see they're going to receive. And if I was hiring this person for this service, what am I say to myself, what would I be willing to invest in this? And then
Mm-hmm.
when I look at that, I say, well, okay, here's a number that I think is reasonable. Then I compare that to some of the other things that we're doing, and we try to, work to those numbers. We're still working on it, obviously, because it changes and value changes quite a bit. One of the other things is when I'm saving someone a ton of money, I'm not going to charge them, a percentage of what you save or anything like that. However, there's a value to being able to even bring them to the table for the opportunity to save the money.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I love when someone comes from a previous accountant and they left the accountant for a reason. Well, we look at the books, we know what they paid the other accountant, but we should be better, right? I mean, that kind of thing. So we bring a lot of those things, but it's really at the end of the day, it's looking at what is a number that is of value to them and will help them in their business, in their growth of their business, in properly managing their business, protecting them, and allowing them to achieve their, goals and objectives, and bringing value to the stakeholder.
With the fact that you are shifting the way that you're looking at pricing these projects, then it's not just about how many hours you think it will take to do the work, but looking at what the client will perceive. Has it changed the final price that you would be charging for a project?
Oh, absolutely. It's at least 50% on top of what I would have charged, some maybe even double. I know that's our plan, is to get to that number. I mean, when I compare an existing client to a new client, it could easily be double.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I'm comparing what I would have charged last year compared to maybe now, it's at least, let's say, 50%, because I knew I was too low anyway. So we're finally at that profitability point, and now we're not afraid to say this is the value, and if it doesn't work for you, that's okay. You just need to find somebody else.
Mm-hmm. And I always appreciate when you let me kind of share more specific data around the numbers and everything like that. So this just gives someone who's maybe listening to us talk about this, that if you get away from time tracking and really step into what is the benefit to the client, you will be able to actually charge 50% more, because that's what your experience has been, because it's really focusing on how the client benefits instead of just tracking time and focusing on the technical part of it.
Absolutely. And sometimes in the scope of services, the other thing is when I look at the scope of services, I'm asking myself, is this an absolute need?
Mhm.
or is this a want? And there are some gray areas, like in our
Mhm.
particular case, one product that we do, or one thing that we put together is a very detailed cash flow management report, which helps understand what your cash flow is and how you're going to have money to pay your taxes and raises or whatever the case may be. And so I would say conventionally, the cash flow report that you get in an accountant statement is not what we're talking about here. We're talking about a detailed cash flow management month by month. Most businesses may never even have seen that. And I can throw that in and say, well, this is part of our process. Well, why do you need that? Well, we need that because you said you want to manage your tax plan. Well,
Mhm.
how are we going to know that? So we take what they're giving us and we listen to what their needs are. And then we put the scope based on their needs. And then we add on top of it things that we know are going to enhance what they need in order to help them make better decisions.
I I think that that's really important, is being able to recognize, what is it that they need, and then what are the things that would enhance, and that's also a way to start thinking about the different subscriptions or packages that you offer. Is maybe one will have just those essential needs, and then another option might have some of the enhanced services all as well. Is that how you've been starting to look at your subscription packages too?
We are. I will say it's because we're trying to have, the three levels of packages, and obviously the top level is giving a lot more. Still struggling a little bit with some of those clients because I'm still in the process of fitting that client into that service. Like that I recognize that client needs this high level service. And I have and one particular client in mind, and this probably has happened with a couple of clients where I've pitched that higher level for them. And they say pitch, but I've offered to them,
Mhm.
and they come back and silence. They want to work with us, but they're not comfortable. You could see. So then it's okay. Well, then I'll tell you what. I'm not going to split the difference. I'm not going to compromise. I'm not going to negotiate. I'm just going to give you less service. So for this less service, still covers what you need. I'm comfortable with it. We're not missing anything to run your business, but now it's going to be at a different fee. And I've had one that actually has worked their way all the way down to the base level. And I just said that one of the engagement letters yesterday. We'll see what happens. And I'm still comfortable that they're getting what they need. It's just that I'm listening to them because they're concerned about budgets. Like, well, if they say no to that, there's nothing left. They have to go elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. And I think that part of what happens, so a lot of people listening to you might have fear that, oh my God, they're not going to be taking this higher level service. So they're going down to the lowest one. But that you created some boundaries and said, look, these are different options, and all of them will meet your needs of remaining compliant. It's just that some of them are going to just give you the essentials. And then if you want other things or more insights, then these are different ways to be able to get that. But the fact that you're not negotiating on your price is really kudos to you, because it shows that you understand your firm's value, and that you're willing to stand behind it.
Absolutely. And just to give like an example, so something that may be in the highest level package would be one-to-one coaching and more strategic discussions with the business owner or maybe staff, where that's not necessarily a need to have your books and records in good order, and even for management cash flow. But that's a very strategic, forward thinking, maybe a future plan, 3 to 5 years down the road or whatever it may be. And if they need that, great. And they may say they want it, and that's often what happens. The reason it's on the initial proposal is because they said they wanted it. When they realize, oh, I can't just get that without it, making a bigger investment. I'm going to put that on the back burner right now. Okay,
Right.
that's fine. That's fine. But I can't take out reconciling the bank account,
Right.
That kind of thing.
And so one of the things that I know you've been in the process of doing all along is increasing your current rates. So can you share some steps that you've gone through to be able to actually start raising the fees with your clients?
So with existing clients, One of the
Yeah.
things is probably more so we would be breaking it down possibly for monthly services and then tax at the end of the year as separate components. And one of the things that we're doing now is we're saying, okay, we want to give them a level base so they know they're paying the same every month.
Mhm.
Everybody really seems to like that. Now what we're also doing is we're adding to it tax planning, because we're saying, okay, at the end of the year, we're going to do your tax return. And with your tax return, we're going to do a forecast for the next year's tax return based on whatever circumstances you already know are going to change next year.
Mhm.
Not only are you going to get your tax return done this year, which if we've had this client week before, we should be okay, no surprises. They finished their return come April, let's say, whatever, March, April. And now they already have a plan for the rest of that year based on existing circumstances. They have total peace of mind knowing that they're okay. They're not just covered this year, they covered next year. And then what will happen is circumstances are going to change for most business owners. And during the course of the year, we'll have one or two other meetings where we're going to go through it all over again. And it's not that difficult to do. It's basically giving them a tax return as a plan and saying, this, based on your information, this is what's going to happen. So when we offer that, that's value added. That's huge value added, because just getting the books and records and doing a tax return, I found some of the existing clients that they just need it. So they do it. They hire an accountant because they need it. But what we're doing is we're giving them visibility for something that they were never getting before. And they don't have to be worried, oh, am I going to get a refund? Am I going to owe any money? How much am I going to owe? I know I'm going to owe. No, you just have a plan. You already have peace of mind knowing what's going to happen. We're going to make it happen based on information you get.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things that is really coming up is that by adding in the tax planning, it gives them more insights into what's going on. So it removes those surprises, or it also gives them more education about what to expect. And as a result of that, there's not that tax season stress that so many business owners have.
And that's we hope to see that on our side this year.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't seen that yet because I really haven't had a full cycle yet. I haven't gone through a season, if you will. And I would say the tax plan and the cash flow report, which is just usually a one-page Excel spreadsheet, month by month. I have clients, that's all they look at. They don't look at anything else. It's all they look at because it's all there. And then they look at it and they know their situation. And then, like you said, they do get educated and they start to take real ownership of their business. Not just a person that is the owner and gets taxed on it or earns money, but actually knows how now to run their business, not only for the day-to-day operations, but understanding the impact it has financially and how it affects their personal lives. And how they can do things and plan things. If they want to go on vacation or they want to invest in another business, they now have a sense of what they have and they're not guessing anymore.
I would also think that because you're now giving them these insights into the cash flow of their business as well as the tax plan, that they're seeing you more as a valued partner than a once a year drop-in, mandatory drop-in. And also that some of them maybe are now reaching out to you proactively instead of you finding out about some things they've done after the fact.
Absolutely. I mean, if you come to us in January, February, I had an example one year where somebody came to me in February or March, and he tells me he had one building that was he had a big apartment building. Oh, they sold it. What do you mean you sold it? We sold it last year. You didn't tell me you sold it. You made a ton of money. Well, what do you think? What's going to happen with the taxes? And they're like, well, I mean, this is totally a true story. He said, well, I thought that you would just do your magic and everything would be okay. You can't do magic like that. That's what they call black magic. That's going to put somebody in jail. There's no such thing as magic that way. Yeah. So talk to us in advance. Well, now he does. And so you do get that proactive plan. And it's just when they finally realize that you're part of the team, that's great. And so the way I look at it is I say to them, consider it as if you have your own personal CPA. And that's how we are. We are their CPA. And you can really say, I'm going to my CPA. And we're there for you. We're going to know when we're sitting down with you, we're going to be as if we're one of your partners. We're going to be understanding your business. We're going to live through this with you. And we're going to be there every step of the way that you want us to be there.
So with that being said, part of what I'm hearing is that there's so many more systems in place, and any thoughts about how having more structure and processes that the whole team has been able to get behind has helped to increase revenues for your firm?
Well, change, I think, drives operations and process, right? So, and I'm a big operational person too, in terms of putting structure in place and having policies and procedures, but not to the extent that it gets so bureaucratic that you can't do. So that's where the example of getting rid of time management was really helpful, because that was something we didn't need to do. What's happening now is we're constantly looking at ways of managing the workflow. That's probably going to be one of our bigger challenges this year, because we have some systems in place which are really good. However, we are still refining that. So right from the moment somebody comes in the door to the point that their tax return is signed and they get the refund or they make that payment, that workflow beginning to end has steps that we follow through. And I think we're getting it down very well. I find that automating that is really difficult. I know there's a lot of products out there about workflow management. It really is so dynamic in our world that I find it difficult to put a workflow in that you could just be entering data. It reminds me of timesheets. So we kind of do it not on the fly, but we have a very clear process, which means we have tons of whiteboards, magnetic whiteboards, and we have information that moves. It's almost like, think of it like a factory. So if we move information from whoever owns that board to the next board, and we run it through the process. Everybody has their responsibilities in terms of what they need to do. Everybody knows what everybody else's responsibilities are. So I find that this change is working well with our existing workflow, and it's causing modifications that hopefully will result in a lot more streamlined processes and less time invested.
Because you're managing the workflow better and you're streamlining things, has that changed how you're working in your firm?
My actual work itself.
What you're doing, what you're focusing on, like a shift from the day-to-day operations more to business development or advisory services?
So the answer is yes. I want to move more into business development and advisory services, probably more advisory services than business development, because as I think it's pretty clear, everybody is having trouble getting good quality people as employees or workers. And in our industry, we're down a significant amount. We're down almost 20% in the last couple of years just of CPAs. And what I've heard is the average age of most small firms is in the late 50s. And most likely a lot of accountants are going to be retiring in the next couple of years. And there's not as many students coming into the accounting world. So that's a formula for attrition, right? So we get less and less and less there. So what we really need to do is make sure that, in my case, although I love business development, we have business coming in so regularly that I'm not pushing super proactive on business development. It's more like managing as it comes in and making sure we're taking care of our existing clients and the clients that are coming through us just through our business networking, which has been pretty good. And I'm trying to focus more there and trying to be less in the day-to-day detail. I see it happening. And so, yeah, more of a oversight. And so we have one day a week where I take an hour for each staff person, and it's their time. And they, so you got an hour, let's make sure you're prepared. And they may go through specific client issues. There may be some other process issues, whatever. So I give them that forum. So I'm more of a leader than a worker. What I should be, and I'm still working at it.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're more the director of the firm than the technician in the firm. And also, I think the fact that you meet with each of your staff members on a weekly basis to be able to give them more insights and training is high value. And it just shows how you go the extra mile with your firm. Okay, so now that you've been moving in this direction of subscription and value pricing, any changes that you've seen, not just to your firm, but maybe crossover into your life also?
Well, one of the things that I know we changed is just having set hours in the firm and saying, okay, for example, I would have no problem scheduling an appointment to meet with a client anytime, any day. So that means evenings, weekends, Saturdays, Sundays. So for the next tax season, the answer is no meeting scheduled in Saturday or Sunday unless it's an extreme case and I have to sign off on the exception. No meetings scheduling after 4 p.m. And I think we have maybe three or 4 days a week where we take specific time to meet, have clients come in. So what the objective is, that will free me up. So on a personal level, I can have a better personal life balance, which in my case has been totally off for a long time. So unfortunately, being around for a long time, I have some pretty bad habits, and those habits are very difficult to break. And although I enjoy what I do, and this is what I'll say, I love what I do, I just do too much of it. And I want to do less of it and still learn how to enjoy it. And that on a personal level is truly difficult. I mean, it's very difficult. But I know that as long as our clients being taken care of and I can sleep well and I know we're doing the best we can, then I can have a better work-life balance. And I want to have more fun as I get, I don't want to die with, knowing that he just spent his day at work all the time.
And part of what it sounds like is you're putting some structure in place for next tax season that hasn't been there up until now, in order to not just be able to take care of yourself, but to keep your staff from burning out also.
Absolutely. And things like, extension week. Well, extension week becomes extension day. It's like, okay, March 15th or whatever, or the 14th, 13th, we're dying. Oh, we got to go all these extensions out. It's like, no. Let's just get them done in February if we know they're going on an extension. What are we waiting for the last minute? We have to work on certain things that we know we've been vulnerable to fail at. And so there are certain things that are the hot spots, and we're going to fix those.
So you're being more proactive instead of waiting for the deadlines. And is there anything else maybe that we haven't touched on that you did want to mention?
I think we've covered quite a bit. I would just say that I think after going through the process as we are, I'm still going through this process, and it's a never-ending process. I used to say, in an effort to simplify things, why is it so difficult? And so what we're trying to do here is we're trying to make the whole firm a simpler concept, a simpler process. And so that's, just keeping it simple. I mean, that's a fundamental basic, right? Just keeping it simple and just really knowing who you are, knowing what I can take on and or what I should or shouldn't take on. I just have, we have the skill set to do a lot of different variety. And I think trying to hone in more focused is something that is our real big challenge right now. And we're working on that as much as we can. So I think that, I would also say truly working with you has been great. It triggers thoughts as you've gotten to know me. I'm a very deep thinking, strategic person. However, I'm also willing to implement tactically as soon as I understand it. I fortunately have some skill set in both areas. So the strategies are really the biggest piece to me, because I think once you understand the strategy, you'll find a way to implement it. And so being alone and on my own and really I don't have a partner here. I would be making the final decisions. And yes, you can run it off an employee or staff, and that's great. But at the end of the day, that's not their role. So they don't really understand the impact it has. So I think when we met back in May at the, Accounting Today Forum, Growth Forum, San Diego, and I heard you speak, I just liked what you said. I understood that you were able to make changes in your own life. And I personally don't offer any service to anyone that, or any product that I haven't used myself. And I felt that you actually lived through the process. So one of the things that attracted me most to talk to you was that if you've gone through the process, it's easier to help somebody else go through the process. And so that has been a big piece for me. And so I do really appreciate that relationship. And not only that, but bringing other CPAs to the table and having group sessions is huge. It is huge because you recognize you are not out there alone. We all have very similar issues going on. And I've learned quite a bit in a very short period of time. So I do appreciate that.
Thank you, Rich. And one of the things I also wanted to just put out there is that we haven't really been working together for that long a period of time, and that you've been able to really see the changes of what what we've been focusing on pretty quickly. So the fact that you have raised your fees 50% or so, getting current clients up to your new fees, it isn't a long, painful, drawn out process. It's something where we want to be able to start implementing it as soon as possible in order for you and your firm to really benefit from the investment that you've made in our work together. So,
and if I may on that, so as a person that has been hired and worked in the seat of the CFO for quite a number of companies as an outsider, the biggest frustration I would have is if I was hired to do a job, and as soon as I got there, they told me what to do, because that's not why they hired me. They hired me to do what they needed. They told me what their need was, and now go ahead and do it. So why would you invest in something and not follow it? So anybody that is looking to make some change, and you're going to invest in learning how to make that change, whatever it may be, you cannot procrastinate. You must pull the cord. Otherwise, don't even bother trying to make the change. So I know I am a person that once I understand something, I'm going to move quickly, and maybe I move quicker than the average person. That's just been my style, and good, bad, or indifferent, I don't think I can change. That's what I do. And so that's, I think, one of the reasons why in a short period of time I've been able to make some changes, because you have been very clear in identifying the value of those changes. And that's why I've been able to do it.
Thank you, Rich. This is always an engaging conversation. And if somebody wanted to reach out to you, have a further conversation, how can they best get in touch with you?
So a couple of things. They can just give us a call or email us. Our office numbers in 727-669-8006. And we have a very long name on our email. People say it, but they don't forget it. And the name of our company is Boutique Accounting Services. So it's Greco, Greco at boutiqueaccountingservices.com. And either one of those, if you go up to our website and Boutique Accounting Services, you'll learn a lot about us, see a lot of videos up there and the kind of services that we offer. And any one of those ways would be a great way to reach out to us.
Thank you so much, Rich. This is Lauren Fogelman with Business Success Solution, showing accounting firm owners how to double their income working half the time.